Imagine the vast, unforgiving ocean stretching endlessly before you. Salt air burns your lungs, waves crash violently against weathered wooden hulls, and on the horizon a skull and crossbones flag rises with terrifying purpose. Welcome to the golden age of piracy, spanning the 17th and 18th centuries, when lawless adventurers ruled the high seas with iron fists and fearless hearts. From the sun-drenched Caribbean to the treacherous Atlantic and the exotic Indian Ocean, pirates carved their names into history through sheer audacity and ruthless determination. Merchant vessels loaded with gold, spices, and precious cargo became easy targets for these seafaring outlaws. Entire trade routes trembled at whispered names. Governments scrambled desperately to protect their interests. Ordinary sailors dreamed of fortune beyond imagination. These were not merely criminals, they were legends, rebels, and survivors whose extraordinary stories have echoed through centuries, capturing imaginations worldwide and refusing to be forgotten. Now, before we dive into our countdown, let's talk about how we ranked these legendary outlaws. This list isn't just about who carried the biggest sword or flew the most fearsome flag. We measured each pirate across 4 key categories: their notoriety among enemies and allies alike, the sheer scale of their crimes across entire ocean trade routes, their lasting historical impact on nations and naval policy, and the extraordinary legends they left burning through centuries of storytelling. Every pirate on this list earned their place through a combination of ruthlessness, cunning, and an almost supernatural ability to become immortal in the pages of history. And trust us, the names coming up will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about a gentleman who abandoned his mansion for the high seas, a pirate who blockaded an entire city, and one fearsome captain whose career dwarfed every other pirate combined. Stay with us, because this countdown is just getting started. Coming in at number 10 is Calico Jack, whose real name was John Rackham. He earned his colourful nickname from his fondness for wearing calico clothing, the brightly patterned cotton fabric that made him stand out even among the flamboyant characters of the pirating world. His career began with a bold move that immediately announced his ambitions. He stole a sloop directly from Nassau harbour, right under the noses of the colonial authorities, proving he had both nerve and cunning. But perhaps what made Calico Jack truly legendary was his romantic involvement with Anne Bonny, one of history's most famous female pirates, who abandoned her husband to sail alongside him. His career in the Caribbean was relatively short, eventually ending in capture and execution in 1720. Yet despite its brevity, his story remains one of the most colourful and captivating chapters in pirate history. Coming in at number 9, we have not one but 2 legendary figures who shattered every expectation of their era. Anne Bonny and Mary Read remain 2 of the most celebrated female pirates in history, and for very good reason. Anne Bonny, deeply entangled with our previous entry Calico Jack, disguised herself as a man to sail alongside him across the Caribbean. Mary Read similarly dressed as a male sailor, hiding her identity in a world completely dominated by men. What truly set these 2 apart was their raw courage. When British authorities finally captured their vessel, most of the male crew reportedly cowered below deck, too drunk or too frightened to fight. Anne and Mary, however, stood their ground fiercely, reportedly fighting harder than any man aboard. Their defiance in that final moment cemented their legendary status forever. Coming in at number 8 is Henry Every, also known as Long Ben, and his story is nothing short of extraordinary. In 1695, Every orchestrated what became one of the most profitable pirate raids in all of history. His target was the Ganjai Sawai, a massive Mughal treasure ship sailing through the Indian Ocean, loaded with gold, silver, and precious jewels worth an estimated £600,000, an almost unimaginable fortune at the time. Every and his crew overwhelmed the vessel after a fierce battle, seizing enough wealth to set every man aboard for life. What makes Every truly legendary, however, is not just the raid itself, but what happened next. He simply vanished. No confirmed capture, no execution, no final chapter. Historians have searched for centuries, yet Long Ben remains one of piracy's greatest unsolved mysteries, a ghost who struck once and disappeared forever into history. Coming in at number 7 is Charles Vane, one of the most defiant and ruthless pirates to ever sail the Caribbean. When the British Crown offered pirates a royal pardon in 1718, most accepted gladly. Not Vane. He fired on the pardoning vessel and sailed away, making his contempt for authority crystal clear. His brutality toward captured crews was legendary, often torturing sailors simply for sport. He terrorized the waters around the Bahamas and beyond, leaving a trail of fear wherever his flag appeared. But his downfall came from within. After retreating from a French warship, his own crew voted him a coward and marooned him on a deserted island. Vane eventually escaped, only to be recognized, arrested and transported to Jamaica. There he faced trial and was hanged in 1720, his body left on public display as a grim warning to those who defied the law. Coming in at number 6 is perhaps the most unlikely pirate in history, Stede Bonnet, famously known as the gentleman pirate. Unlike every other name on this list, Bonnet was a wealthy Barbados landowner with no sailing experience whatsoever. In 1717, he simply abandoned his comfortable estate, his family and his privileged life to purchase a ship and turn to piracy. Nobody quite understood why. Some historians believe he was escaping a troubled marriage, others suggest a midlife crisis of extraordinary proportions. Either way, his incompetence at sea was legendary. He briefly allied with the infamous Blackbeard, who essentially took command of Bonnet's own vessel, treating him more like a passenger than a captain. After parting ways with Blackbeard, Bonnet attempted to continue raiding independently, but was captured near Cape Fear River in North Carolina. He was hanged in Charleston in November 1718, a gentleman who chose the worst possible career change imaginable. Coming in at number 5 is Bartholomew Roberts, known as Black Bart, arguably the most successful pirate who ever sailed. What makes Roberts truly extraordinary is the sheer scale of his plundering. During his career, he captured over 400 ships across the Atlantic, Caribbean, and West African coasts, a record no other pirate has ever matched. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Roberts ran a remarkably disciplined ship. He enforced a strict code of conduct among his crew, prohibiting gambling, regulating lights after 8 in the evening, and even banning women aboard his vessel. Roberts was also famous for his flamboyant appearance, often seen wearing a rich crimson waistcoat, a feathered hat, and expensive jewellery during battle. His extraordinary career ended dramatically in February 1722 off the coast of West Africa, when a British naval vessel caught his crew off guard. Roberts was killed by grapeshot, dying exactly as he had lived, defiantly and spectacularly. Coming in at number 4 is William Kidd, better known as Captain Kidd, one of history's most controversial and tragic figures. Kidd was no ordinary outlaw. In 1695, the British government actually commissioned him as a privateer, essentially a legal pirate hunter, tasked with capturing pirates and enemy vessels threatening English trade routes. He was handed a royal licence and sent out to sea as an instrument of the crown, but somewhere along the way things went terribly wrong. Whether through desperation, crew pressure, or genuine criminal intent remains debated to this day. Kidd began attacking ships he had no legal authority to seize, crossing the line from privateer to pirate. Arrested and brought to London, his trial was deeply controversial, with many believing he was made a political scapegoat. He was executed in 1701, and his tarred body was displayed in a gibbet along the River Thames for years, serving as a grim warning to anyone tempted by piracy. Coming in at number 3, we have Henry Morgan, the Welsh privateer whose ambitions stretched far beyond the open sea. Unlike many pirates who operated in the shadows, Morgan commanded entire fleets and launched military-scale assaults on Spanish territories throughout the Caribbean. His most audacious operation came in 1671, when he led a force of roughly 1,200 men across the treacherous Darien jungle to sack Panama City, one of the wealthiest settlements in the Americas. The city burned to the ground and Morgan returned with enormous plunder. Now here is where history takes a remarkable turn. Rather than facing the gallows, Morgan was knighted by King Charles II and appointed Lieutenant Governor of Jamaica. He spent his final years hunting the very pirates he once resembled. Morgan's story perfectly illustrates how thin the line between piracy and political power truly was during this extraordinary era. And now we arrive at number 2, a name that has echoed through centuries of maritime history like a thunderclap across open water. Edward Teach, the man the world would forever know as Blackbeard. Before he ever fired a single cannon or seized a single vessel, Blackbeard had already mastered his most powerful weapon, fear itself. Standing tall and broad-shouldered, he cultivated an appearance so terrifying that sailors reportedly surrendered without a fight, simply upon recognizing his flag. His most defining feature was that extraordinary beard, jet black, impossibly thick, grown long and twisted into braids tied with dark ribbons. But what truly separated Blackbeard from every other pirate was his battle preparation. He would weave slow-burning hemp fuses directly into his hair and beard, igniting them before combat, wrapping his face in swirling smoke and hellish flame, making him appear like a demon risen straight from the ocean depths. Blackbeard's most chilling moment came in 1718, when he orchestrated a complete blockade of Charleston Harbor in South Carolina. With a fleet of 4 ships and nearly 400 men, he held the entire city hostage for nearly a week, demanding nothing more than a chest of medical supplies. Colonial officials, terrified and powerless, had no choice but to comply. His flagship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, was a former French slave vessel he captured and converted into a formidable warship carrying 40 cannons. This massive ship became the symbol of his dominance along the American colonial coastline. Commanding his fleet with calculated intimidation rather than pure violence, Blackbeard understood the power of fear as a weapon. Merchant ships surrendered without firing a single shot, simply upon recognizing his flag. He effectively paralyzed colonial trade, making governments scramble desperately for solutions against this unstoppable maritime threat. Blackbeard's reign of terror came to a violent and spectacular end in November 1718, near Ocracoke Island, North Carolina. Lieutenant Robert Maynard, commissioned to hunt down the infamous pirate, cornered Blackbeard with 2 small sloops in the shallow inlet waters. What followed became one of history's most legendary naval confrontations. Blackbeard and his crew fought with terrifying ferocity, boarding Maynard's vessel in a brutal close-quarters battle. According to eyewitness accounts, Blackbeard sustained 5 gunshot wounds and over 20 sword cuts before his massive body finally collapsed. Even mortally wounded, he reportedly kept fighting until his very last breath. After the battle, Maynard ordered Blackbeard's head severed and hung from his bowsprit as proof of the pirate's death. That gruesome trophy sailed into port, announcing to the colonial world that the most feared pirate of the Golden Age was finally gone, forever cementing Blackbeard's extraordinary, legendary status. What a journey through the Golden Age of piracy this has been. From Calico Jack's colourful Caribbean escapades to Anne Bonny Mary Read's fearless defiance, from Henry Every's vanishing act after the greatest heist at sea to Charles Vane's stubborn brutality, we witnessed Stede Bonnet fumble his way into infamy, marvelled at Black Bart's staggering 400 captured ships, questioned Captain Kidd's murky loyalties, watched Henry Morgan blur the line between criminal and statesman, and just witnessed Blackbeard's explosive, smoke-filled legend burn out in a blaze of glory off Ocracoke Island. Every single one of these figures left an undeniable mark on history. But none of them quite compare to what is coming next. Our number 1 pirate did not simply terrorize the seas. This individual's actions rippled through courtrooms, parliaments and palace halls, fundamentally reshaping international law and the political landscape of entire nations. Prepare yourself. And now the moment you have been waiting for. Number 1 belongs to none other than Bartholomew Roberts, known to history as Black Bart. After careful consideration, no pirate in history matches his sheer scale of destruction and dominance on the open seas. Between 1719 and 1722, Black Bart captured over 400 ships across the Atlantic, Caribbean and West African coastlines, a record that remains unmatched to this day. He commanded his crew with a strict written code of conduct, yet showed absolutely no mercy to those who crossed him. Dressed in crimson velvet and gold chains, he cut an unforgettable figure on the high seas. He did not stumble into piracy out of desperation. He embraced it with calculated ambition. His death in battle off Cape Lopez in 1722 ended an era, but his legend only grew stronger with every passing century. So what actually made this golden age of piracy possible in the first place? The answer lies in a perfect storm of historical conditions. Naval enforcement during the 17th and 18th centuries was remarkably weak. Vast stretches of ocean remained virtually unpatrolled, giving pirates enormous freedom to operate. Meanwhile, trade routes across the Atlantic, Caribbean and Indian Ocean were overflowing with extraordinary wealth carrying silver, gold, spices and silk between continents. The temptation was simply irresistible. But perhaps most importantly, many pirates were not born criminals. They were former sailors, soldiers, and working men ground down by brutal conditions, starvation wages, and merciless officers. Piracy offered something their legitimate lives never could: freedom, equal shares of plunder, and a voice in decisions. For countless desperate men, turning pirate was not just a choice but an act of survival and defiance against an oppressive world. The pirates we have explored today did not simply vanish into history. They transformed into legends, inspiring generations of storytellers, filmmakers, and dreamers. Robert Louis Stevenson's Treasure Island, published in 1883, gave the world Long John Silver and cemented the image of the peg-legged, parrot-carrying buccaneer forever. Then came Pirates of the Caribbean, turning swashbuckling adventure into a billion-dollar franchise. But here is the fascinating tension at the heart of pirate mythology. The romanticized version, charming rogues sailing freely beneath the skull and crossbones, bears little resemblance to reality. Real pirates endured disease, starvation, brutal violence, and short, desperate lives. The average pirate career lasted only 2 to 3 years before ending in death or capture. Yet somehow the myth persists and thrives, perhaps because pirates represent something deeply human, the fantasy of absolute freedom, of rejecting society's rules entirely and charting your own course across open waters. The golden age of piracy did not just reshape trade routes, it fundamentally transformed how nations governed the seas. As pirates grew bolder, governments realized that weak naval enforcement was no longer acceptable. Nations like Britain, France, and Spain began investing heavily in stronger naval fleets, specifically designed to hunt down and eliminate pirate threats across the Atlantic and Caribbean. This era also accelerated the development of international maritime law. Countries began cooperating in ways previously unseen, sharing intelligence and coordinating naval patrols to protect shared trade interests. Treaties were signed, and piracy was formally declared an international crime, making pirates enemies of all nations rather than just one. Interestingly, governments also weaponized pirates themselves through privateering commissions. These legal documents authorized sailors to attack enemy ships during wartime, blurring the line between criminal and soldier. Figures like Henry Morgan operated precisely within this grey area, serving political agendas while terrorizing the seas. What makes pirates so endlessly captivating, even centuries after their time? Perhaps it is because their stories tap into something deeply human. The desire for freedom, the urge to rebel against systems that feel unjust, and the complicated space between heroism and villainy that most of us quietly understand. Many pirates did not see themselves as criminals. They saw themselves as men and women pushed to the edges of society by poverty, exploitation, and corrupt authority who simply decided to push back. On their ships, democratic codes replaced aristocratic hierarchy. Every crew member had a voice, a vote, and an equal share of the spoils. That radical idea, born on the lawless seas, still resonates today. Pirates remind us that the line between outlaw and freedom fighter has always been dangerously thin, drawn not by morality, but by whoever holds the power to write history. And there you have it, the top 10 most notorious pirates who ever sailed the seas. From Calico Jack's colourful Caribbean escapades to Anne Bonny and Mary Read's fierce defiance, Henry Every's vanishing act, Charles Vane's ruthless rebellion, Stede Bonnet's gentleman misadventures, Black Bart's 400 captured ships, Captain Kidd's tragic downfall, Henry Morgan's political rise, and Blackbeard's terrifying legend, these figures forever changed history. Each one represents something deeper than simple criminality. They embodied rebellion, ambition, desperation, and an unquenchable thirst for freedom on the open water. Their stories force us to question the boundaries between heroism and villainy. Thank you so much for watching today. We genuinely appreciate your time and support. Now we want to hear from you. Drop a comment below telling us which pirate fascinated you most and why. Stay tuned because our next historical deep dive is coming very soon, and trust us, you absolutely do not want to miss it.